welcome back to Soul Wilds. I'm Kate.
And I'm Katie.
And happy New Year's Eve, Katie. Actually, just New Year's Eve, yeah. Yeah, happy New Year's Eve.
Actually, is New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it actually is New Year's Eve when we're recording this. We're jumping into the new year with some really cool stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm excited for today. I'm excited for today's episode.
I feel like I'm always excited, so it's hard for me to say, but
I'm like really excited. Yeah,
the cool stuff, like we're getting into the nitty gritty, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if controversial, if you will,
or confusing. Like I remember I didn't have a good grasp of it, even though I was brought up in religion about what we're going to talk about. I still didn't really have a great grasp of what all this stuff meant. So it's good to I feel like I've had a lot of clarification over the years, especially researching for this and within the past year or so. So I don't know, but yeah, we're going to be talking about soul and spirit, maybe a little reincarnation, where we go, after death, which our culture in the Western world is very adverse to talking about. So I think it's a good thing. And I mean, New Year's Eve is kind of a death of sorts. We are going into a new phase of 2024. Yeah. But we both are going to do a little card reading, and we've already picked ours, and I laughed when mine came out. I was like, well, this is on point. I am using the Herbal Astrology Oracle by Adriana Ayales, and she is on Instagram as Animal Mundi Herbals. Love her Insta, love her. I think that is her handle also on TikTok. Check her out. She has so much knowledge. She has given me more perspective on how to work with plants, work with plant magic, have respect for plants, build a relationship, because they are living beings. So I think that's really powerful in terms of the work that she does. But first off, this one, I laughed when I saw this. I was like, this is perfect, especially for if you're on my TikTok, you'll see why I think this is perfect, and also with cycles. But first off, we got Dragon's Blood, the Anima Mundi, which is so cool looking. I love the dragon. For those of you that know my spiritual journey, you'll know why I have a lot of connection with dragon. Second, we got Angel's Trumpet, which is death. I love it. It is so cool. The imagery, there's a bat, there's the angel of death, there's the path into the light, little portal there. And then finally, Arnica, teacher. And man, Katie and I have been thrown into a teaching position with this, and we take it seriously, but we won't have fun. But yeah, oh wow.
I love that deck. Yeah. I need that deck.
There's the wise woman and the wolf. Yeah.
It's really pretty, and it's not as in your face plant as I was expecting.
Yes.
And it has an ethereal vibe to it, and I need it.
The artwork is by Josephine Clerks. So
very beautiful.
She did a great job. And yes. So Dragon's Blood is considered an herb of the asteroids. The astrological ruler of Dragon's Blood is Black Moon Lilith and Pluto, which Black Moon Lilith is what potentially in astrology, what we've been made to be ashamed of in terms of our power, and we're supposed to regain that. And then Pluto is obviously a planet of transformation, death, and destruction. And so the guidance on this is a plant of South America, Amazonia, and it has a long history of indigenous use in the rainforest. The sap itself looks just like blood, le sangre, and it was often painted on wounds to promote healing and seal them to prevent infection, as well as taken internally to prevent or stop internal bleeding. So the indigenous peoples have been using this for a very long time. Physically, Dragon's Blood is the epitome of Plutonian and Scorpionic energy, as both archetypally rule the symbol of blood. Shamans have used Dragon's Blood in spell work, rituals of protection, purification, and consecration. In Christian art, the dragon was a symbol of evil and sin, yet many other traditions hold that serpent deities like dragons are benevolent, sharp-eyed dwellers that hold the mystery of the great void. So the guidance on this one: dragons are ancient guardians of the earth, symbolizing hidden knowledge and auspicious powers of supernatural origin. Dragons are etheric beings that inhabit the deepest pockets of the ethers and have dominion over the four elements. Dragon's blood core oozes blood, representing the collective blood, the blood of nature, and serving as a gateway to the anima mundi, the world soul. As you enter the all-seeing portal of the great void, don't shy away from its vastness. Embrace it as you are undergoing this great initiation. Within this awakening, you will discover the unique pattern you contribute to the great tapestry of life. So anima mundi, world, soul, and dang it, if we aren't talking about souls today, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm not going to read too much on the other two, but I'll just touch on them real quick, and then I'll go really quickly into my stuff with these. Angel's trumpet signals a time of catharsis or death. A deep emotional breakdown is due or near. You may feel lost in your own emotional despair, depression, shame, or unworthiness, but know the angels of discernment and darkness are here to support you. Coming eye to eye with the darkest feelings within yourself catalyzes the greatest awakening. Deeply pause, let go of control, and witness the broken pieces within yourself with loving awareness. The medicine of the bat, there's a bat on the card, symbolizes the need for a ritualistic death of relations, situations, or aspects of life. Bat, like Angel's trumpet, signals catharsis and rebirth, signaling literal or metaphysical death of old patterns and worn out habits. Understand that you can reconstruct at any time, regardless of how shattered you might feel. And then
that's funny that you real quick. That's funny you pulled that card. I actually just pulled this up on my phone really quick. I just before we started watched Dr. Lennox Streams.
Yeah,
follow him on Instagram. He does a lot of like astrological, like what's going on today, and he's like red robe astrology. He's cool. I love him. So he posted this thing today, and it's about how like a lot of emotions are going to start coming up tomorrow, but today you might start to feel a little hugged by those emotions. Maybe not always in a good way, right? But this like those emotions are starting to come up because we're dealing with stuff. So like I don't know. I just thought that was cool that card was like brought that up specifically when I just listened to him earlier. Yeah.
And the ruler is Pluto and Mars. Interesting. Lots of transformation. Potentially Mars is also conflict. And then finally, we have Arnica. And Arnica's association is Saturn. And I am Saturn ruled. So that's pretty on the nose. Arnica has long been associated with wolf medicine, symbolizing loyalty, leadership, community, intuition, and instinctual intelligence. Wolf, like Arnica, teaches us how to become resilient teachers so that we experience greater knowing and help others as they seek their own path. When Arnica grows in the wild, it is found in unique and mystical patches, showing us its unique form of manifestation and growth. Like wolf, it does not follow established pathways. It finds its own way, off the beaten path, defying patterns of habit. Draw upon the power of your tribe to discover the power of co-creative support, holding your unique power within a community further empowers your vision and capacity. Like a wolf, be fiercely loyal to your tribe while also upholding your unique talent. So I love this. I think too, it speaks to like the greater collective of, while it's okay to, we are each on our very individual paths that are very different or sometimes very similar. And I think as we go through these next few episodes, we will find that we recognize, if we believe in past lives, we will recognize old patterns and sometimes gravitate towards them. Even if they're not good for us, we might recognize souls or those that we've encountered before in previous lifetimes. And obviously, somehow we find each other and we gravitate towards them because there are lessons to be learned. Saturn is also very much teacher. It is about our boundaries, limits, and time. And I feel that it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing to be challenged or to come against maybe some people that trigger us or that teach us some things or show us our shadow, especially with Black Moon Lilith, right? That reveal to us where we might have been made to feel disempowered or made to feel shame or guilt around certain aspects of our being. Those are all very, very teachable moments. And understanding that we are all part of a bigger consciousness, a bigger group, a bigger plan, path, however you want to say it, is extremely important. We are not necessarily as individual, and Katie has talked about this before too, as we all think while we have individual experiences. So reminding ourselves that we have a lot of synergy, that we have interconnectedness, and that going into the void is something that we all must do. And I know everyone's like, 2024 is our year. There's some crazy stuff going on in the skies in 2024. It will challenge us. So hang on to your seatbelt, fasten up, because I think it's going to be a really interesting ride for us as a whole, as humanity. A lot of things are changing, whether we're looking at climate, whether we're looking at interpersonal relationships. It's going to be a bumpy ride, so it's going to be interesting.
Oh, you're stressing me out. I'm one of those girls. 2024 is going to be my year, man. Hey, just called me out and didn't even know it.
I've been told. I've been like, yeah. Now I'm just like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. We're all part of the same soul, the Anima Mundi, the world soul. We'll get into it. We'll get through it together. We are not alone. So, yeah.
Now I'm scared. Ugh.
Don't be scared. You're gonna be fine. That's life.
I guess. I guess. Well, I pulled a card too. I didn't pull like a tarot pool. I actually picked this one out, but it happened to be right on the bottom of my deck when I pulled it out. So it was perfect because I had this exact one in mind. Didn't do that on purpose. But things are meant to be, you know?
Yeah.
So I pulled from my, I did this deck before. It's like the Hack Your Nervous System, how to reduce anxiety, stress, and retain your nervous system, or retrain your nervous system. I can't talk. So for this one, I picked Expanding Connection.
Interesting.
Yeah, which kind of leads into kind of some of the things that I will talk about with spirit. But expanding connection. Face another person, take a deep breath, and place one hand over each other's hearts. You can choose to keep your eyes closed or open. Begin to sync the pace of your breathing with the person across from you. Notice whatever arises in the body and mind without judgment. Heartfelt connection releases happy hormones into the body and increases our capacity to withstand stress. This is just expanding that connection with a loved one. I wish I had someone I could do that with right now, but I don't. So we're just going to table that to when I do, because when I was actually researching some of this spirit and soul stuff, I had ideas in my mind, but I really didn't have specific definitions already made for myself, because I'm afraid that if I read too much, that I'm going to have the power of suggestion and what I believe. And I want to come to like my true beliefs naturally by my own experiences without someone else telling me, whether it's through reading or whatever. But I have read a couple books about your guides and spirit and soul, not to learn about that specifically, but more to address like personal growth, especially getting past some really deep traumas from when I was younger, but also that separation and relationship from my mother, and then that separation and relationship from my last relationship, who I thought I was, going to be with forever. So I really searched for guides to help me deal with those heartbreaks, I guess you could say. And one of the ones I did was Ask Your Guides by Sonia. I might butcher this. Choquette. Ask Your Guides. And this book, now some of it's a little religious for me because of my background. It turns me off just a little bit, but I've been more open-minded to use words a little bit more loosely, like God than just thinking they mean God like Jesus and God, and maybe not. It can be whatever it means to you. But for her, spirit is the eternal, the energetic divine life force that manifests as uniquely you. And she has exercises in this book on how you can start to define what your spirit means or is for you. So describing your spirit using words like energetic, playful, thoughtful, kind, clever, dynamic, grounded, disruptive, silly, those types of words. And I'm not going to go through it today, but if you're interested, check out her book, because it breaks it down to how would you describe your spirit? She helps you kind of think about that. How do you feed your spirit? What brings your spirit life or joy? Listening to music, dancing, art, those kinds of activities that make you feel alive. What aligns and truly makes your spirit feel alive? And then she kind of goes into how to name your spirit. If you were to give it a name, what would you name it? But you can't name it unless you know it. So you first have to start with trying to understand how you would describe that spirit within you, what brings it peace and joy and feeds it, and then naming it. And then how does your spirit express to you, like when it's out of balance or in balance? What does your spirit need to feel in balance? What do you love to do? What are some ways you can connect? And she gives some really great examples. And these are things, Kate, you and I have talked about from the get-go. Journaling, learning new things, being open-minded, meditation, cooking if you enjoy cooking, spending time alone, speak kindly to yourself. Those are big things, as she recommends, of like the starting point to help connect to your spirit and begin to express your spirit authentically. Cooking is on there because it provides nutrition for our body, and nourishing ourselves is caring for ourselves, and a lot comes from that.
I think people have natural like de-stress too. Like if they enjoy cooking, it's like bringing their nervous systems back down because they genuinely enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of start with that, because that will encourage you all to start thinking about your spirit in a little bit different of a way. It is part of you, but it's not all of you. And it's an important piece of who you are inside that not everybody gets to know, but you should get to know.
Yeah, I think that's important to say, because our spirit is a huge part of our experience through the world and how we're moving, or our soul, or however you want to say it. We'll have kind of our definitions here in a minute, but I like that it's like not all, because I think, at least for me, I'm a Pisces, so I can easily get lost and I have stellium in my 12th house. So I can easily get lost in the spiritual and forget to come up for air and neglect my physical body. I'm totally one of those people that like first thing to go out the window is eating when I get into it, and that's not good. So we have to also remember to stay grounded in whatever way that looks, and remember we have a physical body and a mental body and a emotional body to take care of. You're
right.
So where are we going next? Talk a little bit about definition of spirit and soul.
Let's do it. Let's jump into it.
All right.
Maybe we start with what it means to you, and then we go into more of like the actual true definitions.
I would have said,
not that that's not true, but
yeah, I would have said like 10 years ago, if you had asked me, our soul is basically what lives on after our physical body expires, and it is the experience that I will then have either in heaven or hell. That's literally what it would have been. It's the thing that was paid a hefty price for, and now I have to, do all these things to make sure I have an outcome that is what I want. I have to act in a certain way to preserve my soul. And now I would say spirit and soul are two different things to me. But in general, it is that that essence, that energy, that universal source energy that does go on. There is no end to it in sight, which freaks me out a little bit, but it's also amazing. Because the whole concept of infinity just like tweaks out my brain a little bit.
That's everybody.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, you know. I cannot think on that too long because I will have a panic attack. But it's the part of me that recognizes the part in everyone else that is both divine and also having this human experience, and that I believe in past lives. So it also helps me not to judge others, knowing that we all have, for the most part, most of us have spirit, soul, because at any point in my lives, I could have been someone else making the decisions that they're making because of the life that I lived or the people that I surrounded or the family that I was born into. So it helps me at least, at the very least, have compassion for the experience lived of others, even if that person isn't necessarily treating me well or treating others well. It grounds me in that I'm like, that could have been me. I'm glad I'm not leading that path right now. I'm glad maybe I've learned through my lifetimes, and I kind of got luck of the draw this lifetime, which I don't completely understand that either. It's something I struggle with, why some suffer needlessly and others don't. It's kind of a messed up thought to me, but also, I don't know, there's something kind of very sacred and very calming and grounding to me about that we do go on. Our energy lives on by the people we affect, and it's hopefully positive just in that way, you know?
Yeah. That's beautiful. Oh.
How about you?
So in a way, you found a lot of compassion in growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking with everything that you just shared made me think, like, when I was young, like, let's say adolescent, I didn't really think about it. I don't think I even recognized spirit and soul as existing, but I had an awareness that it did, because I would have those moments where I would look around and be like, my experience feels very, 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 very individual. And then it made me like think, I'm like, am I in a world of robots? Am I like, are these people having the same experience that I am? So I had a lot of thoughts like that, but I didn't have a lot of awareness or understanding about it. And then in young adulthood, questioning a lot of the religious practices that I did learn, but again, I didn't learn a lot. If you listen to our other podcasts, like, I just was like not in it from the get-go. So I didn't really get a sense of solar spirit from religious practices. But I started to understand and recognize the more individuality of myself, and I identified that as my spirit, and spirit became more energetic than it did like vibes and things like that started to become like something people would talk about. So it became something that I was more aware of. But from my understanding now, to where I am now, I kind of combine my experiences, but also that with what I'm learning in my yoga practices. So in yoga practice, it seems like spirit is a soul when referring to mind, body, spirit connectedness. So spirit is the sense that it represents the energy flow of the parts of God that are what is within us. Our breath is what animates our bodies and our physical self, but our spirit is actually what's inside of us. So when I say God, I say that again lightly. God can mean anything you personally want it to be. Whatever God that you believe in, that's your God. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
To me, it's more universal. It's more like the collective celestial energy that created and formed where we are.
Yes.
Physically.
Yes.
Through like physics.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so I don't know. So that's kind of in general where I stand now. And I've kind of started to formulate my own theory for no reason. Again, I'm not reading about it. I'm not gaining information to put it, other people's beliefs into my mind. But to me, as I begin to experience more and more of the spiritual part of things and like ancestors and past lives and things like that, I'm trying to make sense of it. So, and I'm not saying I believe this for sure, but it's just a thought that has been kind of going through my mind. As we die, that spirit energy or soul then disperses its energy into the environment that we live in. And in a sense, our soul and spirit energy is kind of, I don't want to say trapped, but it's connected, and it's drawn to stay in the locations that we are because of the physics of the world that we live in, gravity and energy sources, and how things are always being drawn into the world or Earth itself. And I think that in a way, those energies then disperse into the environment around us. And then when pregnancy happens, and that baby is growing in utero, it's that energy that's absorbed by the host or the mother or the birther, if we want to, use less mother, terms, but is absorbed into that body that's helping to create that energy build and that new life inside, paired with the genetics and the other things that go into feeding and keeping something alive. So if that's the case, then really we're parts of the energies from our environments that could be past lives of anybody, not just ancestors. So I think it just depends who's near, what's near, in a sense. And I don't know, it's just a thought. This is all these thought windows turning in my mind, and not saying again that this is my hardcore belief, but it's just where my brain has been going with my experiences. It doesn't make any sense when I start thinking about things like how ancestors play into things. I have a hard time making sense of it at that point, and it becomes really confusing too. And I don't know how to like interpret these ideas of separating spirit and soul, but I'm working on it. So that's my long, like, where I'm at.
Yeah. And I first want to make that was really gave me some things to think about. I love other perspectives. I think some of that could be true. You know what I mean? Some of that makes some sense to me. I don't think that's completely outside of the realm of possibility. You know what I mean? And you can have different words to describe what you just said. But I do want to make a distinction for anyone listening when we are deciphering and describing spirits, at least in terms of this podcast, because we're going to be talking about this for a couple episodes, spirits versus spirit. When we say spirit or spirits and talking about a haunt, like say someone has a haunting or, ghosts or whatever, we are describing the soul or a discarnate entity of a person who is free to travel dimensions and come to us at free will. We will decipher from what ghosts potentially mean from a couple sources that I read. But ghosts and or residual energy can be at play in terms of if something's going on within your house. When we say spirit, I and Katie both most likely are referencing God energy, not necessarily just in terms of Judeo-Christianity or Islam or any of the major world religions' conception of God. When I think of God, I like to use source, spirit, great spirit, universal consciousness type language, because that's personally what I believe, and I don't necessarily subscribe to the Judeo-Christianity definition of God in terms of that. So most of the time that's what we will be referencing, just so you know. Like if we have, sometimes we'll say we have a interaction with spirit, most likely we're talking about potentially in our homes we see something, but yes. I always try to decipher if I'm like having universal consciousness stuff. I will probably use that language, just so you know. But as far as my definition and what I've read, because I like how you said, I didn't want it to be power of suggestion. Like, is this actually what I believe? And I think I'm still coming around to like, I might still be coming around to what the heck I believe until I die. And then I'll die, and then I'll have this whole other experience, and I'll be like, okay, like maybe I was a little bit right, probably was a little like a lot wrong, you know, all that stuff. But I'll get there when I get there.
If we can even relate to our human experience at that point, who knows?
So interesting. But as far as soul goes, the Old Testament term for this, I'm probably going to butcher it, was nefesh. My understanding and what I've read, it is our DNA, our family, ancestry, what gives us personality, choice, our essence. So what makes me Caitlin and what makes Katie, right?
Technically I'm Caitlin too.
Yeah, you are Caitlin. I just don't want to confuse people. But yeah, what makes Kate and what makes Katie. What is potentially the energy? I would say what is I think I was batting around. I'm not so sure now that I would define soul as the energy that is passed down with reincarnation or past lives. I think your soul is your soul outside of itself. And it is what appears to people when they potentially see people who have passed over. It is the seat of individuality, earthly human. It is personal, psychological, emotional aspects of a person. It is temporal, earthly life, personalized part of the spirit. So I really liked, and I'm not gonna lie, I got this part of everything off of TikTok, but I really like the way the person said it, and I wish I would have written down their handle. So if you are out there, I'm so sorry that I'm not giving you credit for this. But they described universal consciousness or God energy, God consciousness as the ocean. Okay, so we're all part of universal consciousness. We're all out there floating in an ocean somewhere. So we take a cup, and that's technically spirit. Like, we take a cup, and it's a different cup. My cup's different than your cup. Maybe my cup's magenta, okay? Take my magenta cup, scoop it up. Now we have my spirit, right? That is my part of universal consciousness in my own individual cup. And then soul is then my personality sprinkling with my humanness, all of that kind of stuff. So maybe I flavor the water, right? I put some Propel in there. I shouldn't drink it, because if it's the ocean, you'll dehydrate yourself. But that then is individual person. Now, Katie might have a yellow cup, right? That is her own sustenance, her own essence of spirit, and then sprinkling in what makes Katie is then soul. It sounds weird, but that made a lot of sense to me. And with soul, we have ego. Like I said, ego isn't necessarily bad, but I personally have gone through some ego death, and I can tell you it's nice. It's really painful when you do it, but it is really interesting. And ego is what potentially creates the illusion that we are separate. If we can integrate ego with our knowledge of being synergistic and interconnected with everyone, that's like the ultimate package right there.
The ego is what's telling you, like, this is crazy. There's no science for this. You can't see it. It doesn't exist. That's your ego telling you. That's your logical mind, your animalistic part of yourself. That's like, that will argue with you.
Which is useful, though. It is useful to question.
It is. For survival, too.
Yes, it keeps you alive. And then we can talk about this probably another time, because this is a whole nother bag that I battle with. But your soul may also then, if we're talking about past lives, we've all heard of karma. I feel like karma's been, that word is thrown around a lot. Karma does not have feelings. Karma does not necessarily, like, karma, I see karma as justice card in tarot, and or a Saturn related card, like the swords, the King of Swords. Like, we are not bringing feelings into this. This is literally, I look at it as a bank account, or like the sum game, right? Zero sum game, positive sums or negative sums. You do crazy crap, like kill people. You know what I mean? With our human understanding, I would imagine maybe that is, adding a little bit of debt. Whatever that looks like, we're not going to get into semantics, because this could be like a loaded bomb, essentially. But we cannot bring our human consciousness necessarily into karma. But there is belief, obviously, in Hindu and I don't know if karma is necessarily a Buddhist tenet. And we also, karma just isn't what we think it is, and it can be a a bitch. But I feel like, man, my human consciousness doesn't completely wrap around that for sure. But then in terms,
it does. It looks Buddhist tradition. Karma refers to actions driven by intention.
Okay. That's where the ego comes in, right? And then spirit, which is the word, I'm going to butcher this, sorry for all my Hebrew speaking peeps out there, ruach in Hebrew and pneuma in Greek, and pneuma is often referred to breath, right? Pneumonia in the lungs. So pneuma is the prefix. And I would imagine breath of life. Like Katie said, it is used to reference spirit. It is that energy, like we said, that is divine in our own little cup. It is divinity directly connected to source, love, wisdom, and goodwill. It will be torn between following our mind and soul. The divine or higher aspect of a person, the higher self, it connects us to source, spirit, God, part of the person that communes with God. So it receives divine revelation. It is transcendent. It is the spiritual, moral part of us that connects with source, and it is eternal. So I would say probably the way I liken that is when people may make sense of it, is higher self. Like, the higher self is bypassing our logical mind, bypassing our fear centers in our mind, bypassing our ego. And it kind of is, this is what it is. This is cut and dry. This is just all facts, right? No printer. And like, that's how it is. And that's how you can make an unbiased decision. And I kind of see it as universal consciousness. So our cup, my magenta cup of all that universal consciousness, and it is untempered by my soul's personality, desires, my ego. That's kind of my understanding of how people would define it. And honestly, spirit, I feel like spirit is the thing that lives on. Because your higher consciousness is still different than my higher consciousness. That's the thing. Even though we're part of universal consciousness, we are still two different higher selves, right?
Yeah. I like the analogy of the cup. I think that helps people visualize it, which we all kind of need a little concreteness to understand this very abstract concept. Yes. But I like that. I like that. Also, you said I was a yellow cup because I appreciate
I know
yellow,
you do.
So.
And yeah.
I bleed
my
gold,
little
guys.
Leo rising.
I'm allergic to gold. Did you know that? I'm
really
actually allergic to gold.
The day a Leo rising is allergic to gold.
I know. Wow.
Like, so it's weird. Literal pure gold. Or is it like the nickel?
The more pure, nope, I know. The more pure it is, the worse I get breakout, like not even, they're almost like hives, like bubbles that itch real bad.
Ooh.
My ears become elephant ears if I try earrings, and the more pure it is, the worse it is. I learned that the hard way as a kid.
Isn't that crazy?
I know. A lot of people don't believe it. And I've had like jewelers be like, yeah, that's not a thing. It's the nickel. And I was like, okay. Like, I know because I experienced it. And my dad went back to the store and he kept buying more, the purest like gold earrings he could get at one point, and he had to pull them out of my ears with pliers. My ears were so bad.
Oh, my gosh.
And I get it now with, if I do like a ring, my finger swells like around it. Ooh. And it becomes very red and itchy. I get it on my neck. I get rashes on my neck all the time though. But anyway, off topic. Just to jump back in. So it just reminded me a little bit with like Hindu and other ancient cultures, they actually believed in separateness. So separateness as far as the soul spirit being separate from what they called the astral body. So again, it's all tit for tat, all these terminology changes.
But what's the astral body real quick?
Yeah. So the astral body, what do I think? I don't think anything. I just know what I read because this is the first time I was hearing about it. But with the astral body, it's said to be the higher vibrational body, that of the other world. So that's the one that's part of us that can travel there and back. The soul spirit is the essence that leaves the body upon death. So I don't know if that distinction is similar to what you're describing, and it would make sense to me that the soul spirit is part spirit, but the soul is the mixture within us. It's what makes us us. And the spirit is that organic, natural, universal consciousness that we use to create ourselves. It's what we all come from. It's the God, the Brahman, the everything. So yeah, a lot of cultures, I mean, ancient cultures, even before Jesus, had believed in those.
Absolutely.
That separation. So.
Yeah. And I wanted to make a distinction too on our last podcast when we talked about pagan. I know a lot of people think when we talk about pagan, it's been kind of co-opted to maybe just refer to the Norse. It can be a polytheistic belief system. So we are talking about Egyptians. We are talking about the Sumerians. We are talking about ancient Mesopotamia. And all of those major civilizations were along way before the Abrahamic religions came. So just wanted to throw that out there. That's a little caveat. Going off of that, the astral body, I feel like just from reading, it almost seems like in a sandwich. So say like, I don't know, our mental, like our physical body is
You're a diagram girl. Look at you.
I'm trying to appease to the visual people, since you are also visual. But like, say first level, like we're seeing is physical body, right? And then beyond the veil, say there's the veil here in the middle. It's the peanut butter and jelly.
Technically, the mind is also a veil.
Yes, because we have emotional, mental, spiritual bodies. We have a bunch of different bodies that like even just make up aura and like can be layered outside of ourselves. I never realized this. We're going to talk about that more for sure. But
veil is just that separation.
Yes. It's a dimension, you could say. But the astral body is like the peanut butter and jelly in the sandwich. It's kind of like that intermediate stage between the other slice of bread at the bottom, which we could say would be our spirit soul. So I've read that it's like an intermediate subtle body energy in between that. And it is composed of like, I guess, whatever our souls are composed of, stardust. So I don't know. I found that interesting because that would make sense to me, because I would say that when we're talking about astral projection, it is soul-like or spirit-like that we are putting out there, but I would imagine it would not be smart to astral project your entire spirit, your entire soul. You can get trapped when you astral project. You can get into places that are no bueno. What do you think, Katie? You're smiling over there.
I just have a lot of gears moving in my head. I don't know. I don't like that we as humans always have to separate and define everything. And I feel there's a part of the universal consciousness we'll never understand.
Yeah.
And in my heart, I feel it's all one, even though we want to separate. So thinking of it like a sandwich, I don't know if I like it. I don't know. It's interesting how, there's a lot of.
You could definitely not like it. I like definition. So I'm completely opposite of you. I'm going to disagree. That's okay. Because I think I'm just saying this to make it make sense for people. And maybe when your astral body truly is, I think it is the same, just not maybe like I'm putting my whole freaking soul out there when I'm astral projecting, because I just don't feel that that's like wise. But I mean, if you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'll get nerdy here for a second. I feel like even if you're not into cartoons, this show has so much stuff. Like I was like, holy crap, this was on Nickelodeon for free. Like we got access to this as like young kids for free. And it's because they're taking from Eastern culture. So of course, Buddhism, Hinduism teachings would be kind of mixed in to the world that Dan and I'm so sorry. The other creator, I don't even remember, but that the creators made, that they would intermingle all of that stuff. And they talk about astral projecting, even though they might not call it that. They would call it, the avatar is basically the bridge between the spiritual and humanity. And he would literally travel into the spirit world and he wasn't necessarily dead when he traveled into the spirit world. He was still very much living, but his soul was not within his body, and they would like animate it that like it was like light traveling when people would see it.
Okay, so I'm gonna tickle your brain a little bit. So I'm using that. My brother said that to me the other day, and I was like, I'm using that. Tickle my brain.
Yeah. Tickle your brain.
My brain. So, and I'm going to talk about vibration frequencies in a little bit. But before I jump into that, I just want to, again, tickle your brain.
Okay.
So,
I love it.
In the United States, if you remember when we were young, we're in our 30s, it started as like a salad where we were just a mixture of things, and we were taught to believe it's a salad for a very short period of time before they said, oh no, we're not a salad because that separates everyone. We really are a lot more intermixed than that.
Yeah.
And we are the melting pot. We are a soup. We are melted together. We've become literally one meal, not something that can be separated, which, I mean, I'm sure there's still arguments on that. But thinking in that way, though, if we know the universal consciousness, and modern science confirms this, that it's, composed of pure vibration frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think of the spirit as a vibrational frequency, and we think of the soul as a vibrational frequency, and the soul is the parts of the vibrational frequency that melt with the people individually who we are, parts of us that are genetic, parts of us that create personality, all of that. And if we think of that as static, and static that is intermixed like a melting pot, but when we do things like astral projection, the highest of the frequencies, which is what is able to travel through the veils, is what separates from our self. And the reason we're conscious of it is parts of our soul actually do travel through astral projection with our spirit, because it's not always easily separated. Just like if in a soup we were trying to pull out some of the things we don't like, we naturally will also be pulling out some of the flavoring we do like, because it is literally intermixed. So not that our whole soul travels with our spirit when we astral travel, but parts of it does, because our consciousness is not easily separated from the universal consciousness. So in a way, we're mixed.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. You just said it in a different way. That makes more sense.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, because I was like, well, no, I said that, like, I don't think it would be wise for our whole soul to go places. So parts of our soul, like the layers, and that's kind of like, even though you didn't like this sandwich analogy, isn't it the same thing?
This is me debunking your sandwich.
Actually, the PB&J sandwich still stands to this day. Strawberry jelly. Oh my gosh. But no, like,
anyway, let me get off of that box.
No,
that was deep.
That took
a lot.
I like that box because ultimately we came to the same conclusion. We just maybe worded it slightly different, didn't we?
Yeah. Very interesting thoughts. So let's talk about vibrations for a quick second. So I'm going to go back to the brain. And a few episodes ago, I did talk about brain frequencies very briefly. But when we look at the brain, let's look at the two physical parts. We've got our right brain and we got our left brain. Our right brain is subconscious mind, part of creativity, intuition, visualization, imagination, those kinds of things. In our right brain, where we have this creative mind, we're looking more at alpha waves. Alpha waves vibrate at 8 to 13 cycles per second. True subconscious are considered theta waves. They vibrate 4 to 7 cycles per second, and often 10 times the power of the conscious mind.
Wow.
So 10 times the power of our logical mind. But here's the thing, too.
Real quick, though.
If you remember, we only use 10% of our conscious mind as humans. What the actual hell are we capable of?
So we are not in the driver's seat. We are not in the driver. And that's why I want to encourage everyone real quick. Think about it. Think about why it's so hard then to break patterns. So for anyone out there who's beating themselves up, especially around this time, because this is the time of having resolutions, like, you have to understand that is why it is difficult. So keep on, I just feel like I need to say it, keep on your journey of trying to unravel all of that. Like, literally, we're not really in the driver's seat. Our patterns are driving us. And that is why it's so hard to, like, break some of that and create new habits, but you can do it. Like, isn't that just insane?
I just had a thought, like, only using 10% of our conscious mind, like, capacity. How Neanderthal is that? Can we think about that?
Lizard brain, 100. Like, yeah.
I want to go back to an example I shared at the very beginning of our podcast series, where human life on Earth has only been around comparable to the very last layer of paint, only on the very tip of the Eiffel Tower, where the whole rest of the Eiffel Tower, including the layers of paint outside of that last layer of paint, is life on Earth without humans.
Yeah.
So truly, humans really are at their infancy still, and we are sort of going to be one day the Neanderthals as the world continues to exist in the way that it does.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like, we think we're on it. We are far from it.
No.
It's kind of crazy.
I mean, we're more on it than where we were, but we, like you said, I think 10%. Last episode, like a long way to go. Or I said, I was like, we have a long way to go.
I want to harness the shit out of that, but I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. That's just, and that makes sense then with real quick with your theory in terms of like how we are born. And now I'm thinking about it in terms of, and like what makes up our soul and why, like meeting the people that we do, it makes sense to my brain in terms of astrology, because I heard potentially this might have been in the ways that like the Sumerians or Egyptians conceptualized astrology, that, or even the Greeks. I remembered this so distinctly because it was such a good way of thinking about it, that our soul, when it becomes incarnated on Earth, the way they kind of visualized it was, when we're talking about actual like birthplace oriented astrology, so horoscopic astrology, we have to know location and we have to know time. Those are two very, very, or ascendant based astrology, because that's your rising sign, is the time you were born in the place that dictates. So when we look out at the horizon as the sun's rising and you were born, or wherever the sun was rising and your soul is being incarnated, whatever constellation was on that horizon, much like the sun, that is what your rising sign is. So as I was being exited into this world, Aquarius was on the eastern horizon, and that's why I am an Aquarius rising. But as they viewed it as your soul's past coming down to Earth, I have a lot of conjunctions. I have a lot of conjunctions with my Saturn and with my net, because I have a Capricorn stellium. So I have a lot of conjunctions in terms of planets. So they viewed it as my soul passing through those planetary bodies, and they viewed the planetary bodies as actual entities or archetypes. So energies, right? So I'm Saturn ruled. Saturn is definitely about organization, time, limit, obstacles, daddy time, that's probably why I like organization. That's why I kind of like a straight linear path. Let's get to the answer. Let's not like F around with all this other bullshit. I also have a lot of Aquarian placements. So like I can be direct, I can be detached, right? Like it is what it is, knowing myself. So I love that's kind of like, also they say, I found this really cool quote when I was getting together my astrology class: the soul of the newly born baby is marked for life by the pattern of the stars. At the moment it comes into the world, unconsciously remembers it, that 10%, and remains sensitive to the return of configurations of a similar kind. So it kind of goes along with like what you're saying, like, why are we necessarily born? Why do we gravitate? I'm all about the patterns lately, but like, why do we necessarily gravitate towards some of those things? And it literally could be soul. It could be the other 90% of our mind. It could be that our unconscious is that, because it is that strong. How many times more theta waves? You know what I mean? How many more RPMs? Like, we're definitely not in the driver's seat, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I just want to real quick start a new trend. Daddy time.
Daddy time.
I don't know if I can say father time ever again. And I Okay, I talk to Father Time.
Yeah.
I have always talked to Father Time because I perpetually run late.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
And I like pray to Father Time like he is a god. And I will say, Father Time, please be on my side. I say it as a prayer. I have done that since I was a child. No fucking joke. So now I don't know. I might be in my daddy time phase.
Having my daddy time phase. It's just giving Pedro Pascal phase of almost being like, he's daddy. Like, I know a lot of people would like combat me and say Saturn isn't about time. Personally, I do view Saturn as being about like those limitations, those things that sometimes time has to pass. They always say that Capricorn risings are like fine wine. The more time that passes, the better looking they get. And even Capricorn suns or Capricorn placements are known to kind of like chill out as time goes. We're not quite as serious. We're very like morose as children. And then like we become more mischievous. We become like more fun as time goes because time is just on our side. Daddy time, baby.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying all this, but I thought that was just like, I was like,
that's really interesting.
I feel like I've heard this before, just in a different way.
And you know, it also links it. And when you were talking about that, it was like a question came up in my mind of like, oh, well, how does it stay with you? How are we connected to our physical body? But then I was like, the chakra system. We have those energy sources throughout our body that literally are like our gravity.
Yes.
For our spirit energy that just sticks with us. And because our soul and spirits intermix so well in our development, it is one in our host and energized by our chakra system. Anyways, these are all theory based, guys. We're not out there we're not here telling you this is how it is, but this is what we're starting to believe through our experiences, but our practices as well. But jumping back to looking at those vibrations, when we look at the alpha waves, those typical cycles of vibrations within our creative mind, and we can meld that to almost be equal to that of the cycles within our theta waves. That's where we create deep meditation, where we sort of lower that vibration frequency of our creative mind to be somewhat similar to the cycles of the subconscious or the theta waves.
Dang.
When we look at the left brain, though, that's our dominant brain. That's what controls our body. That's what's our logical mind. That's where our ego lives its best life. So
she's
it's
living.
Our seat. Yeah. It's considered the seat of the conscious mind. It's fast, low voltage waves, 14 to 28 cycles per second, and they're considered beta waves. Under stress, beta waves can reach over 50 cycles. So we're very far separated from the frequencies. And now think of when we look at these frequencies, I think if I'm thinking correctly, Kate, please correct me if I'm wrong, the lower is the higher like vibration, right? The higher frequency, the lower HZ. Is that right?
I would imagine because we're dealing more with like closer connection to source consciousness.
So think of pitch, right? So like the lower it is, the higher it is. So like we want it because it sounds like the theta waves 4 to 7 cycles per second. That's less than the alpha waves.
Yeah.
Which is way less than the delta waves.
And with frequency in this sense, we are not talking about like sound frequency, just so people like get that, because it would be the opposite. Because when we're talking about sound frequency, I'll just relate it to chakra system. The lower sound frequencies are associated with like root chakra, which technically, if we're going to use lower high vibe, would not necessarily be considered the highest vibration. Your crown chakra, and then because there's 7 chakras, so then the additional 5 chakra or 4 chakras above that, because technically there are some would argue there are 12 chakras, which I believe some may argue there are even more than that, but we'll go with a solid 12. Those are like highest vibe, and like visually they are above your head, which is obviously closer to sky daddy and source and all that stuff. So you
just want to use daddy now. I do. That's a part that I'm still learning about, and I'm going to continue to investigate and learn about is understanding that sound versus vibration, because separating that's hard for me. So I appreciate you stepping in on that. With sleep, delta waves vibrate at 0.5 to 3 cycles per second. That's when we're totally relaxed and unaware of our surroundings.
Imagine the minds that cannot get to that state, though. Man, you are like a piston running at 80 RPMs, like with your logical mind. That's crazy that so many of us are stuck in that. That's like blowing my mind. Wow.
Spirit energy vibrates at higher frequencies than the physical world, making it not easy to see, but we feel it. Parts of our body that are highly receptive to the high frequencies, such as our heart, our gut, the back of our arms, our neck, and our throat. And it's interesting.
Some people get ringing.
Ears weren't on there, but
they weren't.
Maybe
that's crazy.
It wasn't on there. It was the heart, the gut, the back of the arms, the neck, and the throat.
Well, guess what? All those are
the highly receptive area.
Well, guess what? Like people with clairs.
Or people who not sure if they experienced apparitions, where they typically touched.
Yeah, on the arm is for me. It's the arm for me, girl. The back of my neck. Wow, isn't that
crazy? Quickly, a quote that was in the book. So physical appearances are the least accurate representation of reality. Physical world is the least accurate. We are perceiving everything we're seeing. And we're not going to get in depth talking about that because then it becomes really difficult to follow. But look beyond the surface of everything. Search more deeply. Be clairvoyant. Find what's hidden in people. Find what's hidden in situations. Find what's hidden in your environment.
And you do that by finding what's hidden.
See what we don't see.
Yeah. You do that by investigating yourself as well.
Yep. Becoming clairvoyant means developing a clear and accurate view of the true nature of all things. People, animals, plants, all the things. Notice the energy, spirit in your pets. Pets who have passed. Different plants. Notice the tune or the tone that you get in your heart and how it feels to you energetically. The more open your heart is, the more open to feeling the energies and vibrations you are. So feeling silly again, or having blockages in this, or telling yourself, this is fucking crazy, I'm sitting here trying to feel my plant energy, that's your ego. That's not you.
It's your left brain.
Stop trying to make sense of it. Stop comparing your logic to your physical.
And we get it, because we are both skeptical people. We're very skeptical.
Very science-driven mind, I'm telling you. But this is what comes back to expanding your connection. So connect with your own heart. Connect with the heart of your people and your things and your plants and your pets. And start tuning into their energies. Their vibe, if you will.
Yeah. Pets are amazing. Like animals, so smart. Like my dad laughed at me when I said this. But I describe my cat as wise. She is. Like, that's why people who have anxiety, it's now shown with studies with PTSD, like having pets. That's why we have, what are they called? Comfort pets, or, whatever it is. Because animals are just being. And it is co-regulation when you are spending your time with an animal that is just able to be, because you are feeling and seeing them just being in their environment. And man, doesn't that bring you down to a lower frequency in terms of your brain waves? Because then you can just be. Animals are so wise that way. They just are.
If you are raised traditional Catholic, you're taught that animals don't have souls.
Yeah. I was too. I'm a fifth grade president.
That is absurd to me. I think animals have souls, or plants have souls. Any living thing has a soul. I don't look at spiders the same this year. I don't. I'm still afraid, but I'm not killing them. And I've been trying to work on it. Because they have brains and souls and things that are, making their bodies and life. They're experiencing. They do dances. They love.
Yes, they do.
I got off a little bit again.
No.
Spiders, but
there's no getting off in this podcast. We get right back on track, and even if we go off on a tangent, I feel like we're still on the track we need to be.
That's true. That's true. So, did you have anything else about spirit and soul you want to talk about? Because I know I want to talk about the other world really fast, but I didn't want to talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Let's go.
All right, so this will be very brief. This is based off of some research I did in the book Wicca, The Complete Craft by DJ Conway.
Sitting on her desk conveniently for the people.
But the Wicca, so again, Kate mentioned earlier, that doesn't mean you have to be a witch to believe in Wicca. Wicca comes from a lot of like pagan and religious and not even ritual practice, really, from ancient times before Jesus. You know, we're talking about the same kinds of things in the Hindu culture, some in Mexico. I know we've briefly mentioned some of their temples and things like that. So the other world is what is looked at in pagan or Wiccan culture as being that place. So let's talk about what that place is. So the place being not heaven, not hell. It's a 7-level based spiritual consciousness world and growth where we experience consciousness and growth. And it doesn't include, or actually it does include devolved souls. So those are going to be those more modern word evil souls, if you will, those souls that have not evolved consciously in any form that they have experienced their energy life.
Low energy, low vibe.
Yeah. This place encompasses ancestors, family, friends, pets, animals, other spiritual entities. Some really believe in, you know, one of these levels or realms being areas where these supernatural or mystical things live, like the dragons and the fairies and the gnomes and all the fun stuff. And it's not like a tiered system. It's not like you earn your way to another level or anything like that.
I'm just imagining like paying a subscription and being like, I want to be 3rd tier this time.
Yeah, no, unfortunately that's not how it describes it works, but wouldn't that be something? Oh my god. If we just be reliving human life, it's fine.
Yeah. No, thank you.
It was also referred to in Celtic cultures as the Celtic Blessed Isles, and in pagan cultures as paradise or the land of fairy. You can reach this place through dreams, meditation, and astral traveling or astral projection. It's separate from us, but it is mixed in all around us. It's part of our universe. So in my mind, I just conceptualize it as dimension, but really it's present, but separate. It is not a special place we go to, but it's just out there in the universe.
What's that movie with Amy Adams where the aliens come and we discover that time is not linear? The Arrival. The time is a circle. Oh, you should watch it.
Watch it.
It's beautiful. Time is a circle and it's all happening simultaneously. Or like where he goes into space, Matthew McConaughey. Dang
I'm bad with movie titles. I'm not the girl.
You're the worst. Keep going and I'll look it up.
I'm so sorry. It consists of different types of energy that vibrates much higher than anything in our physical world. Again, that separation of vibration is something that is referenced consistently in ancient cultures.
Yeah.
That is how we are separated. It is by vibration.
Interstellar.
Which makes me rethink the whole purpose of these pyramids, man. But I don't want to go there because I'll talk about that for hours.
I mean, we need to talk about it at some point. But Interstellar is the movie. Interstellar, everyone knows it. Interstellar is the movie.
Oh, yes.
Yes, where he's like giving his daughter signals with the dust. His dark materials also touches on other dimensions, and literally the veil, the subtle knife can slice through it and they can create a portal and step through.
So interesting.
If you can't tell, I love movies and I love books. I'm a huge media person. That's how I move through life.
Now I'm like rethinking watching that movie again and seeing my interpretation, but
Interstellar,
probably different than it.
We should watch it. We should group watch it and make a podcast about it.
We're gonna jump when we're done, guys. So
actually, we're
never gonna talk about it.
Yeah,
it's fine. This is self growth. This is the work.
Hey.
But we can travel there through our thoughts and mind, which is how a lot of our clairvoyant gifts come into play. This is how we communicate through our thoughts and through our mind. And all the conversations that I've had which haven't been many, but the ones that I have had with those who have passed or even are celestial beings of some kind, I don't really know how to interpret. We've had conversations like we are having right now, but like my mouth was not used. My voice box was not used, but I could hear the voices back and forth as a conversation through thought and mind. The brain and the mind are separate things. We talked about this briefly earlier. They are separate. There's a veil there. And this is realized in science, despite not knowing where the mind resides exactly. So the mind is more complex. It isn't the machine. The brain is the machine, if you will. It is thought that the mind may reside in the spirit, and the spirit may be one with the mind. We don't know. That might be, I don't know, but that's something to think about too, because I know in psychology research and things like that, understanding the separateness of the mind and the brain exists, but not understanding the mind is something that we a lot of times just put it into perception, sensations and perception, and then forget it is separate because we have no way of really understanding. But so yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. And like part of that kind of seven levels, and we don't have to get too much into this now, and I didn't write it down to talk about today because it could take a while to talk about, but it's pretty interesting. They actually talk about all the creatures and things that we think we see. I don't know if Bigfoot would be part of it. They don't talk about Bigfoot in here, but like things like that.
They talk, like, there's that theory that cryptids are actually interdimensional beings.
It's
and
possible.
Our national parks have portals, and that's why people just disappear.
Where they travel. They choose to travel. In this 7-level based outer world or other worlds, this is where you do have choice to intervene. This is where spirit chooses to come out and say, like, I'm going to be communicating with this life force that I value because they're an ancestor or a relative or pet. This is where they're at. They're coming from this other world. And in Wicca practice, I know they briefly mentioned like that choice to guide, it is a choice. Yes. And their choice for reincarnation is a choice. Yes. And that's how they explain it. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know what I believe, to be honest, but that's just something that I read in this book. And then, unfortunately, there still are devolved spirits and those, or what do we call that? Like incarnates?
Ghosts.
Devolved spirits. They do exist, and they have not great intentions because that's just part of the
are we talking like lower level entities? Like lower level entities?
Yeah, yin and yang exist, unfortunately, but they have the choices to do different. From my understanding, they have the choices to do better.
I think everything. Yeah, I feel like, and that's where we'll talk more about when we get into actual like, hauntings and stuff like that. That's like the difference between a spirit, which is the soul that can travel at will, like the way Katie is describing, that can come in and give you message, that can come in, and some of those souls eventually potentially become our guides or our guardians, and some of them are our ancestors, actually DNA linked, right? Yeah,
and the animals
appear to us as animals. I've had that happen. But then there are souls that are not coming in as will, and that's the differentiation between when we say spirits or a soul and ghosts, or a ghost. We'll talk about this more, but ghosts are kind of almost stuck in a time loop, like earthbound. Some of them, and that's where it gets hairy, so I don't want to speak too much because I feel like I still have so much learning to do, but that is the difference when we start getting into that kind of stuff. But that's really cool. And I'm wondering too, so there's 7 levels to this.
Yes.
And then I'm wondering, like, where the heck did Dante, with Dante's Inferno, where did so I'm like, where the heck were you, bro? Did you get
ergotism?
And like, were you just tripping out?
A lot of these scholars, I can't think of the right word, but scholars have referenced these things in some Socrates.
Dante Alighieri. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, who else? I mean, we could name so many of those people of higher consciousness, period, who talk about these things.
Da Vinci.
I would argue Jim Carrey, but I'll have some controversial
I thought we were
beliefs about that.
I thought we were going way back to the Renaissance.
A lot of people put him in the category of weird now, but is he though?
Yeah. Is he weird?
Or is he just higher consciousness at this point, or I think closer to higher consciousness?
I think higher consciousness is weird to those that aren't that forget to be connected, like, because there are people we see this when we do Reiki, in terms of like having to, if we're going at it from like an Eastern approach perspective in terms of chakra systems, and those, I'm sure there are other words for actual chakra systems, it's just how we're making sense of them. But there are people that they're like, that their upper three are just not, they're not spinning right, they're not connected, they're not tapped in, so to speak. So we have to remind people that they are connected, and you and I have had experiences where we both needed to be reconnected. I spend a lot of time on people's crown chakra once we kind of get those lower levels doing their thing, what they should be doing. Then we got to go to that crown chakra, and I may start looking more into doing all 12, because I think being tapped in, if you are ready, is very good. And that's where we can then go into, well, that's why the spiritual awakening is so freaking jolting, because when you're not awake, when you forget, when you're tapped in, and then all of a sudden you have all this crazy stuff occurring that would like put you in an insane asylum 70 years ago. You're like, what in the world? What in the world, you know? Because it
makes so much sense though now. I mean, with the knowledge and experience and practice and open-mindedness has helped so much. But I won't go into the animals and stuff, because I want to talk about that more when we talk about actual like guides and angels and ancestors, which will be so much fun. But just to name a few others, we talk about fairies, trolls, gnomes, merfolk, love a good salamanders. I had to come back to that, or fire drakes and dragons, because you had started talking about the dragon when we first started, and I immediately went to this in my mind. They are considered animal allies, not spiritual mystical things. They're considered animal allies in the spirit world, so it's pretty cool. We'll get to that, and then I want to talk to you more about those 7 levels, because there are differences. There are differences in the highest level being ethereal, and something that has developed separate from human spirit. And they are ultimately what's in charge of the go around of all things, of the universal energy. But they are not us or part of us. We cannot be them. They cannot be us. But we'll talk about that more.
I guess that quashes my question then. You know, since they can obviously travel into this dimension, are we a level? Like, is this reality a level?
Like the human experience?
This plane that we're on, whatever this is, you know what I mean? Or is this a completely separate thing outside of all of that? Or are we intermixed?
I don't know.
Are we in the sandwich, is what I'm asking.
That's a great question. And I, again, like you were saying before, there's a lot I don't know still, and there's a lot to learn, and we need some gurus to come up on here and just share this information, because it takes years to read and study, which I love doing, because personal growth is better than just taking what one person says as like Bible. But it would be helpful to have someone who has already done this guide us, but hopefully we're doing that for you guys in some way.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Talk about levels.
There's levels to it. Yeah. Well,
get on my level, ho.
Get
on my level.
Level up. But this is it. Wow, this is interesting. I learned so much. It made me think. The wheels in my head are turning. That's for sure.
I'm glad we did this early because it is a deep conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to be late at night, like, thinking about this.
I don't think I could have had the energy, honestly, after a full day, because not that it took a lot of energy, really. I find it fascinating, and it's so cool to talk to people like with you about it, because we have different perspectives, but we're on a similar path, and it's fun to share. It's fun to share.
It is fun to share. But dang, soul sister. Wow, what an episode. This was really fun. This was so fun.
One for the books, as you say.
One for the books. One for the money. Two for the show.
I'm excited for what comes next. You know,
we got a lot.
We're going to get into soul and spirit even deeper. As I mentioned, guides, angels, ancestors, past lives, gods and goddesses, astral projection.
Guardians.
We got it for you this new year. Yes. Enter your spiritual realm, bitch.
Yeah, we are in the thicket of the soul wilds right now. This is why we chose that name, because we're
dancing with all the ethereal beings.
Dance with dragons.
With the animals and the dragons and the ethereal and the past lives and ancestors. We are here.
What a time to be alive. But we appreciate all of you tuning in. We have way more where this comes from, but I think this is where we'll shut her down, huh?
Yeah. But remember to come into connectedness with your own heart and the hearts of others, and that's how you start your journey right here. This is how you start connecting to the energies.
Yeah, we are
right there.
Get into that world soul. That is for sure. But this is Soul Wilds signing off. I am Kate.
And I'm Katie.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.